Secretary, if you'll note the time is 6:02 p.m. We're going to convene the meeting. So how's it going, everybody? Everybody doing all right? Thumbs up. Commander's doing good. All right, fantastic. Looks like fall weather is coming our way, at least pseudo fall. So that'll be good. And of course, somebody calls me. It's my wife. She forgot that I'm in a meeting. Oh well. So that in a nutshell is kind of the welcome. Howdy. If any of you new folks want to introduce yourself, please feel free to. Janine, of course, stepped away from her camera. Paula, would you like to introduce yourself, kind of tell us where you live? And
Sure. I'm on Steinbeck Ave, 1400 block. I was actually in the last meeting.
Where are you? I'm sorry.
That's all right. New faces, it's hard. And you were on vacation, so I think you had been drinking.
Yeah, yes, I had, and I was not in the commander's jurisdiction, so I wasn't driving, so I was perfectly fine.
Exactly. I bought this house in April and moved in shortly after, and I really love the area and trying to get involved in the neighborhood.
Welcome to Highland Heights during the middle of COVID.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm an introvert, so it's totally
okay. Fine. Anna, I can't recall if you were here with us last time or not. Were you?
Not last month. I joined a couple months ago.
Ah, fantastic. Okay. If you would like to just kind of give us a quick rundown, what part of the neighborhood you live in. Welcome to the group.
Yeah, I live on
awesome.
Gatewood.
Okay.
Lived here for about 4 years, but just recently started kind of joining the meetings. So I'm
fantastic. Well, welcome to the group.
Thank you.
All right, we had a flurry of waiting room activity there for a moment, but I think I got everybody. Rachel repositioned, apparently lost her signal and rejoined, but that's okay. And Bo, I did admit Jamie, I thought I did. Oh, Jamie McNally. We have no video, but we have audio. Okay.
That's perfect. Okay, he'll just listen in.
Fantastic. Okay. You guys will be up towards the end of the agenda. So first on the agenda, we have our report from the Metro Police Department, East Precinct, Commander Imhof. And by the way, if everyone will make sure your mic is muted so we don't have any barking dogs or doorbells or phones, that would be great. You have the floor, Commander. Go right ahead.
All right. Hey, good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me? Okay, good. You guys, since last time we met, I think Sergeant Fisher was here last time, and I was here the time before that. And Sergeant Fisher did key me in on the drinking, Gordon, just let you know. But good job, and I hope you had a good vacation. We did have one robbery since last time we met. Right now, the victim in this case, it happened over at the parking lot of 1303 Jones Market over there. The victim stating that a suspect approached her in the parking lot with a rifle, demanded a purse, took cash, and she gave some possible scenarios of who might have set that up. However, when we've got the video, we see her there. None of the things are kind of adding up based on what the video is showing us. So there's still a lot of legwork to be done on this, but right now there's still a lot of unanswered questions about it. So we're still digging into it. I know that I talked to the detective today about it, Detective Livingston, and there's some suspect stuff going on that case right now. So we're going to try to figure out what's going on there. Aggravated assaults. You had a total of 6 aggravated assaults, 2 of those being domestic violence related. One was over at the 1800 block of Jones. This was on about 2:30 in the morning on a Sunday. There was a verbal argument, and there's 2 gentlemen that was arguing. As one gentleman walking back to his truck, the other one got in his car and attempted to run him over and sideswipe the victim's truck. So that case is still being worked. And that was on the August 30th, August 31st, over at Dickerson and West Trinity. This is around the same time in the morning, 2:30 in the morning on a Monday. The victim's in the vehicle, and the suspect pulled up next to the victim, next to her vehicle, and just started throwing stuff at her. Window was down. She got hit with something, and the car got damaged a little bit. There wasn't any weapons except for the unknown objects that the victim told us about, but she couldn't really tell us what was being thrown at her. And the last one was 2 victims on one incident at 1500 block of Jones Avenue. And the victim said the suspect broke into the victim's room victim's room and threatened them with a knife. No one was injured in that case. And we're still following up on that. And then, like I said, we had 2 domestic violence cases, one at the 900 block of Oneida. Suspect strangled the victim to the point of unconsciousness based on what the victim's statement was. There wasn't any injuries on the victim, and they refused to prosecute. And then 1800 block of Dickerson, the victim was intoxicated and said the suspect hit her with a pair of shears. There was no injury there and no prosecution as well. Commercial burglaries, we had one called Shed Fitness at 747 Douglas. They shattered the rear glass door and they took some cash from a cash box. Over the last couple months, commercial burglaries have been an issue for us, not only in your area, but for the whole precinct. We've seen a bit of an increase. Right now, we've had 39 in the last 2 months. Now, we had a guy by the name of Fred Harris that did several of these, a lot of fast food restaurants, things like that. We were able to connect him with several cases, get him arrested. We found out he was only in jail for a few days, made bond, he's out, and now we've seen a surge again. So we have a feeling, based on how he's doing these burglaries, that it's him doing these most recent ones as well. So we need to go re-find him, make some more cases on him, and put him back in jail and see what happens. With COVID, that's one of the frustrations we're seeing right now. We're making good cases on folks, but they're getting out of jail pretty immediately, and then they continue in the behavior. We have one guy he's out on the street right now, and he has 3 active bonds on him. That means he's been arrested 3 times, been released 3 times, and has 3 bonds on him right now. So he continues to go out and commit crimes after that. So that's one of the frustrating things we're dealing with right now. We had 2 residential burglaries. One was over a 900 block of Oneida. Actually, the victim saw the suspect asleep on the floor at the residence. The door was left unlocked. Suspect walked out the front door after being woken up, and a TV and a toaster was later found to be taken. And then the 400 block of East Trinity, there was no forced entry. The house was left unlocked, and some jewelry and some cash and a passport was taken. Both cases, the victims refused to have prints taken at the scene. We had a few petty thefts. One, we had the victim says they were distracted by one suspect while the other suspect went in the room and took a pistol. That was over on 1300 block of Dickerson. 1500 block of Jones, they allowed the suspect to use their debit card earlier, but then the suspect continued to use it without their permission. That's another case. And then 300 block of East Trinity, the victim left their wallet on a countertop and it was taken. And then we had a wallet basically taken out of somebody's pocket over at 1400 block of Dickerson. 1700 block of Luton, they took a phone. It was a domestic related case. They took a phone from him. There's no prosecution there. And then we had a package taken from a front porch at 700 block of Douglas. And one of the things that we've been dealing with a lot this year is breaking into cars. You all had 6 in the past month. Of those 6, 3 of the reports were taken over the phone. And just as the people went into the car and rummaged through, didn't take anything. Then we had 2 that there was no forced entry into the car, and then we had 1 that was forced entry, and 1 gun was taken in the last month out of a car. That puts us up to 64 guns taken out of cars in East Precinct this year. Last year we had 62 for the entire year, so obviously we've already surpassed that, and there's quite a few months to go. There's quite more time to go this year. 2 years ago we had 80, so I think we had close to 700 for the entire county last year, and it looks like we're on our way to surpass that by a considerable amount. And we're averaging about 26 car break-ins a week right now. Back in 2014, we averaged about a little less than 10 a week. So since then, it's periodic. It's gone up incrementally ever since. But right now, the last 2 years have been the highest we've had. And it's not just the East Precinct. It's all the precincts as well as surrounding counties. It's kind of the thing to do. People aren't breaking into houses anymore. They're breaking into cars just because it's much easier, more accessible. They're getting guns, like I said. Over 700 guns last year. You're going to see more than that this year. So we're asking folks, please lock. We're asking folks to lock their cars up and don't have anything in it, make it bare. However, we're seeing a lot of shattered windows even when there's nothing in the car. So if you feel like you're better protected by keeping your car unlocked, but just having nothing in it, I mean, we'll leave that up to you guys. We have made several cases on car break-ins. They're just not staying in jail right now. They're coming out almost immediately. The same juveniles, before we actually get the paperwork done, we're getting called to go to the parents' house to tell the parents to go pick up their kid. And the adult cases, they're not keeping them in for that either. So it's still a little bit more of the same frustration for us, like I talked about earlier. In vehicle theft, you guys had 5. 4 of the 5 keys were used, and we're seeing probably anywhere from 70 to 80% of all cars that are taken are being taken with keys right now. That's kind of nothing new. This past week for the whole precinct, we had 10 cars taken, and 8 of those cars were taken with keys. So, and right now we're averaging about 7 a week, and that's up 32% from last year. So overall for the precinct, we're seeing about 11.5% increase in crime this year. We're seeing about a 13% increase in violent crime. Most of that's going to be aggravated assaults. We have seen a bit of an uptick in commercial robberies and larcenies. Like I said earlier, the car thefts and the car break-ins have been a big issue for us. So what we're asking folks to do, obviously I know everybody's heard about the budget crunch that the city's having, and we're also having a bit of a recruitment issue right now. So we're a little short. We're about 100 officers short right now. So we're trying to get as much coverage as we can everywhere. We're trying to do extra patrols in the hottest spots that we have. But if you do see any activity that seems suspicious whatsoever, please call us. Don't confront folks, but please call us and we'll go out there, get out there as quickly as we can and check it out. But with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Okay, one question that I had kind of as a follow-up to your general report. Have you seen any kind of trends in any of our neighboring neighborhoods like Capitol Heights or Cleveland Park that we might want to keep an eye on that may be kind of moving our way or that maybe could potentially future impact us?
I would say with the commercial burglaries, it's up and down the Dickerson Road corridors right now. I would say anywhere from Douglas all the way up to Maplewood Trace. That's the corridor in which we're seeing the most commercial burglaries. We're seeing a lot of car break-ins. I know you guys didn't have as many, but we're seeing down in McFerrin Park, Maxwell Heights, some in Cleveland Park. We're seeing an increase over there. We're seeing Shelby Hills is getting hit a little harder than other areas. Those are the main areas for that. A lot of the aggravated assaults we're seeing a lot over in River Chase Apartments over by Joseph, lower end of Joseph, by Sam Levy. We've had 10 homicides this year, and 9 of the 10 have either happened in over like Delway Villa, River Chase Apartments, and over in Casey. 9 out of our 10 have happened there. I think we've had 4 or 5 on Joseph this year. We're still working on that. A lot of that's in River Chase. We just started a community engagement team over in that area where we have 6 officers and a sergeant that is dedicated in the River Chase, Sam Levy, McFerrin Park area to do a lot of community engagement, a lot of bike patrols, a lot of foot patrols, engage in different organizations such as IW Mills Elementary over there, as well as Salvation Army. And I think there's a McNeely daycare center over there that we're partnering with them as well as the community center in McFerrin Park. So we're hoping to get that crime to go down a little bit more. We've been working with the management. The management over at River Chase has changed hands so many times over the last 5 years, and they just changed hands again. So they did just put cameras up. They have 4 cameras. We like them to get more. Just to give you an idea, Casey has 180 cameras over there, 880 to 200. And 4 cameras just isn't going to be sufficient over in the area that we're talking about. So hopefully we can get some improvements there. So hopefully that answers your question.
It sure does. Now, with the vehicle break-ins, have you seen any kind of pattern? Like, are these vehicles parked on an alley? Are these vehicles parked in a driveway or parked on the street, or anything that would make one particular vehicle or set of vehicles more attractive than others?
To be honest with you, what we're seeing is, especially a lot of ring footage, we're seeing a car come up and a bunch of people getting out of it, and they're just going up and down the street. It doesn't matter if it's in a driveway or parked on the street. They're checking door handles. All right. Now, some people are getting a little more adventurous, and they're just breaking windows as they're going down the street and then looking, because all they're doing is looking in the center console and they're looking in the glove box. That's it. They're not doing a real big search. They're doing a cursory search, looking for money, wallets, purses, and guns. And then they're in and out. And so they're checking the door handles. But if they see anything laying there, they're breaking windows. But we've also seen where they've broken windows and rummaged through and didn't find anything.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for the commander? Most everyone's mics are muted, so make sure you unmute yourself before you start talking. Paula, did you have?
I do. There was what sounded like semi-automatic gunfire a couple weeks ago. Either Gatewood, Douglas, behind Stainback. I'm not sure exactly where. And then a couple other incidences of some gunfire, and didn't know. I know the neighbor behind me called it in at the time, but wondered if anything came of that.
When you report gunfire, we'll go in the area and we'll try to see what we can find. Sometimes we find something, sometimes we don't. I was just in a meeting earlier this week where we were talking about Shot Spotter. And for those who don't know what Shot Spotter is, that's some technology that you can have in an area. It's usually a large area that will pinpoint where a gunshot took place at within like 2 feet. And we're working on possibly, it's very expensive technology. So we're working on partnering with a couple other folks to possibly bring that on board. They're obviously going to have a test area. It was a meeting involving my East Precinct, North Precinct, Midtown Hills. So I don't know where that would take place at, but we're in the preliminary stages of talking about that. But I think it would be hugely beneficial. So when gunshots go off in a certain area, that information will go straight to the officers' computers in their car, and they can pinpoint and go straight there. You don't even have to call us. We're going to go straight there. And we're getting a lot of gunfire in, let's say, some other areas in which we don't get calls. So it'd be really beneficial to have that technology where we can know exactly where that gunshot took place at the moment it took place.
Now, that system has already been put in place in some big cities, and I can't remember where, if it was like Philadelphia or New York. And
They have it. And I actually had a demonstration when I was up in several years ago. I was at a training up in Boston, and I went to their real-time crime center, and they have Shot Spotter up there, and they showed me examples of how they were able to utilize that technology and get officers in areas super quick, and were able to apprehend suspects. And even if you can't apprehend a suspect right then and there, we can find shell casings, things like that may lead us to something else.
Yeah, response time does make a difference. Okay, did anyone else have any questions for the commander, Courtney?
Yeah, I just had a question about the groups of people that are going around like checking handles and going into cars. Is there any sense of if they are like in the same group moving to just different areas, like pinging around town? Or like, I feel like I've seen them try my door handles here, but then I don't get any activity on my camera like for weeks or anything. So I didn't know if it was the same group like hopping around town as opposed to people who might be like in their own communities, like walking, now that they're traveling in a like kind of a caravan type thing.
In the past, it would be typically, historically, we would see like a pattern where we see a group of people doing it. We'd catch the group of people and you'd see car break-ins go down dramatically. It's just rampant all over the place. There's people doing it everywhere. It's like I said, it's such easy access to get guns and other things that you're seeing so many people that engage in this type of behavior doing this all over the city. It's not just one group. It's numerous people. It's numerous groups. That's one of the reasons we started the Juvenile Crimes Task Force. One, at the time we started that, it was a lot of juvenile carjackings, but now we're seeing a lot of juveniles breaking into cars. And one of the reasons you're seeing the big increase, the 32% increase in vehicle thefts, is because what's happening is they're breaking into these cars and they're finding keys. So what starts off as an auto burglary turns into an auto theft because they found keys to the car and they just took off in it. And then when they take off in it, they're using it for obviously either joyriding or they're going to go commit some other kind of offense with it. And then they're just dumping it. And there's some locations where we know are frequent dump spots. And so we're coordinating with the Juvenile Crimes Task Force about keeping those areas under surveillance and seeing what we can do with them.
Okay. And are we seeing any like rise in the East Nashville community with guns being like stolen as compared to like Antioch and Hermitage? I know were, I think, higher rates of them finding firearms in cars, I guess. And then I have a random question after this.
Okay, well, that one is, we're one of the smaller precincts. We're only 22 square miles, which is very densely populated. So a precinct like Hermitage, which is much bigger geographically, they're probably already over 100 guns taken in their precinct. South is probably the same way. For us, though, I mean, 2 years ago we had 80. Last year we had 62, and this year we're already past 62. We're like 64 right now. So we're seeing an increase in it. You would think after 3 years of talking about this, we would hope people would stop putting guns in their car. And I think you guys heard me say before that the legislation they passed a few years back, the Castle Doctrine, which allows people to have guns in your car without having to have a gun permit, really increase the likelihood that guns are getting taken, because a lot of people are putting guns in their car because they can. You don't need a permit. But word got out and people started breaking in cars and finding all these guns where we didn't really have that issue before.
Right. And just one more thing, talking about like juvenile programs and like crime reduction, I was wondering, you had talked in the past about a boxing program and how that was being paired with studying and tutoring and some educational initiatives. But I wondered, is that program or in programs like that, are they kind of on hold, or are they having to shift with the current, situation?
Well, that boxing program was over at the Kirkpatrick Community Center over by Casey, and it basically has to shut down because of COVID for right now.
All right, that's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I had a
Rachel?
question. Thank you. So it's a really hot topic, and it's really not just about our neighborhood, but about our city as a whole. Feel free to pass on this question, but I'm curious about the mental health diversion and the new center that's opening here, and how you all as a precinct and as a force see that program, and if you're excited about it, or if it's troubling, or kind of your sense of it from a whole MNPD perspective.
Just to make sure we're talking about the same thing, are you talking about the mental health program over the sheriff's department?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, a lot of the folks that we have to deal with, because there's really no other alternative, is we get called to deal with mental health issues that maybe we shouldn't have to deal with, because arresting folks, it depends on the circumstances, but for the most part, arresting folks with mental health issues isn't going to do them any good. It doesn't do the public any good. And for the most part, if they're a danger to society based on their mental health, that's where we get programs like that involved, or we get mobile health, the mental health cooperative involved, or mobile crisis involved. Sergeant Fisher and I get a lot of calls about, mental health issues, and instead of sending patrol, he and I will go out there and we'll kind of assess it, and then we'll try to get the right people involved. We went out the other day where we had several disorderly, it was over on West Greenwood, and there's a couple houses, a couple duplexes over there, apartments it's where Park Center has some folks. So we went over there just to see what was going on, just to make sure, and that's what we learned. It's like a lot of substance abuse recovery, and which is fine. And we just talked to them and figured out what the issue was and worked it out. And I think that's the best way to go. A lot of folks don't know, I'm about to get a master's in mental health counseling at the end of this year, after 4 years, thank goodness. But so I work really closely with the folks over at the Mental Health Co-op, and a guy named Michael Randolph is a supervisor over at Mobile Crisis. So anytime we're seeing issues like that, I always make calls and referrals over to them to see, and Park Center as well, to find out how can we get best serve folks. I know we had all the homeless tents under Ellington Parkway about 1.5 years ago, and Sergeant Fisher and I went down there numerous times. We partnered with Park Center, Salvation Army, Mobile Crisis about how to best serve folks, and we got everybody out of there because the state didn't want them there because it was TDOT property. But we were able to get everybody out of there and find different living arrangements for everybody without having to make a single arrest. So I'm for those types of programs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think there's a lot of misinformation about it, so I just wanted to hear your perspective, and appreciate that very much.
No problem.
And I think that's one of the things that we as a precinct should count as one of our fortunate advantages over some of the other precincts. We've got someone like Commander Imhof that has that kind of background and does take it to heart. And I'm grateful you're leading our force over here in the East Precinct, Commander.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions for Commander, so we can let him go and go on to the next meeting that he has to rush off to? No? All right. Be safe out there, Commander.
No problem. With that said, if you guys have any questions between now and the next meeting, you don't have to wait till the next meeting. You can just contact myself or Sergeant Fisher. You can call us at the precinct or email us, and we'll be happy to answer anything y'all have. If you're like, hey, I just saw a bunch of police cars down the street, wondering what was going on, or shots fired in an area, or just want to know what's going on in a particular case, we'll try to give you as much information as we possibly can. Just give us a call. You don't have to wait for the next meeting. Just want to say that.
Thanks, Commander. We appreciate it. Always. All right. Moving right along on the agenda. Next up, we're going to have a council corner, but unfortunately, Our council member advised me today that he had a double booking on tonight's schedule, and I chastised him tremendously because he should have our meeting on his calendar every month. But I also understood. So chatted with him for a few minutes today and wanted to bring you guys up to date on a few things. Figure out what I did with my notes. Oh, here we go. So we talked a little bit about the upcoming budget referendum that may very well be put before Davidson County voters on the property tax hike. He wanted us all to know a couple of things. Number one, that he is still pushing for sidewalks over on Dickerson and to have Trinity repaved. However, considering the current budget climate, some of those types of capital improvement type projects may be on hold longer than we necessarily like. But just know that he is still aware that that's a big concern for us and that he is pushing that as much as he possibly can. He also let me know about something that I wasn't aware of, that apparently effective January 1st of 2021, there is now a new state law that any non-owner occupied short-term rental properties, the real estate property tax is going to be taxed at a commercial rate, not a residential rate. So that could very well help us out a little bit on property tax revenues, because those properties are going to be taxed at a higher rate because they are basically commercial ventures and not residential properties. But we did talk for quite a few minutes on things in general, and I stressed to him that we still want to keep some of our projects in mind, and he firmly has stated that he will do that. But of course, with some of the potential budget constraints coming up and what we're facing right now, we may just have to be patient and understand that there are other fish to fry in the county. Did anyone have any questions that I should pass on to Councilman Parker? And please know that he is definitely open and willing to talk with us. You can either call him or send an email to his Metro government email box, and he is very responsive when he certainly can be. If there are no comments then or questions, remember, if everybody's on mute, I believe, make sure you unmute yourself before you speak up. So if nothing on that, I'll move on to the next topic. The next topic is these meetings are being recorded. And I have to apologize. I have not gotten last month's YouTube video uploaded. I had a delay with some software issues, and I'm going to try to get that done. And this meeting recording will go up as soon as I can get it edited and put it back up as well. Mostly I just trim out the first part before we start the meeting. Next, Treasurer's report right quick. We still have just over $1,600 in the coffers. We did have a renewal on our PO box come due. That was $59, and then I paid our registration for a nonprofit organization to the Secretary of State, and that was about $21. So we will see a slight withdrawal on next month's as soon as I get the paperwork filed for reimbursement. Did anyone have any questions on Treasury, amount of money that we have? Right now, we're really not spending any money because there's no events to go. Last expenditure we had was for the magnets. And I did see a note, Rachel, from you about you'd be willing to help distribute the magnets. And I dropped off a nice little box to Courtney last week, and I can certainly get you some as well.
And Paul and I are going to work together on that, so we can coordinate.
Okay, perfect. Fantastic. Okay. Any questions on the budget? On the Treasury amounts, anything like that? If not, we're going to move right on to our next item. Our next item is zoning and metro planning. Now, I apologize that I don't have handouts like I've given out in the past. I can do a screen share and show you as we run down the current projects. Really, honestly, there's not much on the development planner, development tracker for us in our neighborhood, which is quite a relief from past years. There are 2 on East Moreland and 2 on Lucille that are pending at the moment. And just to go right through them right quick, here, let me see if I can screen share and get the list up so we can actually see it. Where is it? Okay, can everyone see the document on the screen? Okay, all right, so
If you can increase the zoom, I found that that helps on yours where it says 100.
on the
if you
view,
make it a little bigger, that would make it.
yeah, hang on, let me see if I can find,
It's just to the left of the font.
yeah, I know. Does that help? Or does it not help? I can't see what you guys are seeing. I'm just seeing what's on my screen.
Yeah,
Maybe
on
not.
your screen where it says 100%, if you can just make it bigger, just below that.
Just below where your cursor was. Where
Under insert.
Right here? No,
Yep, that's the one.
I don't know if this will work or not. Does that work?
Yep.
All right, is it big enough or you want me to make it a little bigger? This is new territory for me with this screen share stuff. We can go maybe and see how big that work. Ah, we can get everything on there. Okay. All right. Sorry about all the up and down. Don't mind making anybody seasick. All right, so 217 East Moreland Street. This is basically a rezone from RS5 to R6A. Because of its location, it's in the R4 subdistrict and it is allowed per neighborhood supplemental policy. More than likely what's going to happen is they're just going to build 2 units on this piece of property, similar to what we've seen in other places in our neighborhood. 118 Lucille, this is actually Ben Stauffer. He is in our meeting right now. So if you want to speak up, Ben, and explain a little bit more. I know you've come before us in the past, and I don't really anticipate any kind of issues with this, but if anybody's got any questions, Ben is here, so please let him know.
Stacy? You know
Yes.
what? Sorry. Someone say something? Oh,
yeah, I heard somebody hollering my name, but I didn't know.
Yeah. Hey, Stacy, this is Ashanti. I had a quick question.
Oh, hey, Ashanti, how are you?
Good, how are you? I just wanted to know, like, is there a reason why Sean is the applicant on that 217 East Moreland?
I'm going to guess it's because Mr. Woodard either was not able to get down to planning to submit the application himself. Usually what planning will do is if the council member submits it on behalf of a constituent, they list him as the applicant. We saw that a lot with our previous council member. We don't see it near as much in this circumstance, but it could very well have been. I did not ask him about that because I didn't pull this case before I had talked to him, but I would assume that's the situation. Only he's doing it only on behalf of the constituent.
Okay, thank you. That was all.
Sure. So Ben.
One thing, my zoning is actually already done. I'm not sure where this list comes from, but mine's actually already been approved about 4 weeks ago.
Has it gone before council?
Yeah, it's already signed off by the mayor.
Oh, okay. They had it marked as an active case.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure what the source is, but Parcel Viewers got it all updated. And 217 East Moreland's already updated too. I just jumped on while I was looking. So some of these cases, some of these other cases may not be active, but
yeah, I was just going based off of what I saw in the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to move that on everybody. Just going based on what I saw in the development tracker listed as active.
They're probably just behind on updating there.
Okay.
But yeah, my rezoning's done, and then I just have some other permitting and site plan issues to do since my building was never permitted. My secondary dwelling was never permitted, but the zoning is done.
All right, perfect. Well, that's good.
Thanks.
Keep me honest, keep me straight, right?
Yeah, no worries.
So the next one is 105 East Moreland. And again, same idea, RS5 to R6A, as well as the 223 East Moreland, or excuse me, Lucille. That one is the same, just an RS5 to R6A. All of these are permissible by our policy. the revised policy that we have in play. And then the last one on the list is one that's near to me and not so dear to me. 1699 to 1705 Lishy is going for its final site plan approval. Not much has changed on the site plan. I did have a link in there. I had uploaded this list to our website. However, apparently our website has an issue, and I have to go in and try to fix whatever's wrong with it. So if anybody would like that link, I can certainly send it to you or post it in chat. The plan hasn't changed much, and I don't know if the intention is to actually get construction going. Since they have a builder in play, I would think that would be the case. So on we go. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm back to me. Did anybody have any questions on the list, or any questions on any other developments and such that are happening in the area?
Hey, Stacy.
Yes,
This is
ma'am.
Shanti. Oh, go ahead, Paula. Go ahead, Paula. I'm sorry.
I just wondered what that 1699 to 1705, what they're planning on building.
13 individual detached homes in 0.8 acres.
Wow.
So yeah, it's literally
Wow.
2 steps away from my back door. Not like Danny's. Danny's literally is 2 steps behind his back door, but mine is that's almost in my backyard. And yeah, we fought that one back in 2017, and it was going to initially be 15 houses. So they thought they'd do us a favor and reduce it to 13. But still, yeah, it's a sizable development for such a small lot. So we'll see how successful that one is.
Can you put that link in there, Stace? Would you mind?
In chat, yeah, hang on a second. I'm not going to share the screen again. I'm just going to copy and paste it from the screen.
Thank you.
And I'll have to admit, this is a pretty detailed plan. But let's see. It's now in the chat. So if somebody wants to copy and paste that into their, into somewhere where they can keep it handy, that would be awesome. So that is everything that, like I said, that I was aware of on Development Tracker. And thanks to Ben, learned that not everything is entirely updated. But I don't know of anything else that that is, well, I won't say that I don't know of anything else that's in the works. There's a couple of things that are in the works, and we'll hear from Scott and Bo and the rest of the folks on that project in just a moment. There is a potential development that may be happening next door to Courtney at 1305 Lishy. I was contacted last week by the potential buyer, and we've had a discussion. I've been pressing him to do an SP and do a primary residence with the dadu in the back. He has expressed an interest in just moving ahead with 2 tall skinnies. So Courtney, if you want to weigh in on that and kind of let the rest of the neighborhood know kind of how your particular position on that, and if you'd rather abstain from making comments at this point, I can completely understand. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that that there is potential development going on next door to Courtney at 1305 Lishy.
I have no comments prepared. However, I would say that my house is kind of a strange situation and positioning in this, what's considered a neighborhood center. The lot that Stacy's talking about is on the very edge of that designation. And so my house, the abandoned lot, and then it goes back into the single family footprint, duplex, multifamily homes. And so you do see the tall skinnies or the 2 on a lot along Lishy. That's not uncommon. However, I've seen a lot of density in the neighborhood center, but I feel like this particular lot should be seen as a transitional lot back into the single family footprint. So my home is a 1.5 story house, and the homes on the other side of that lot are 1 story, even though they are duplex properties. So I have concerns about height and transition and what will be appropriate scale, I guess, is my main concern, although it certainly would be nice to have active neighbors on a property that is currently vacant. But I am yet to see the plan, so I don't want to be too hasty, but definitely I hope that they're mindful of the transition. And I would personally prefer that they do a single family home with perhaps an accessory dwelling, and leave some more like green space than maxing out on the lot or trying to get two homes there. But I will be open to seeing the plans and whatever they do within the policy.
So I will state a couple of things. First and foremost, this person would like to come before the neighborhood association. I advised him that we really weren't going to have enough time tonight to hear from him, so he may be here next meeting. So keep your eyes out for October's meeting link. It will probably be via Zoom as well. I see us doing Zoom for the short term. He could do RM9A, which is a little denser than what it is right now. It would allow the 2 units on the lot. However, that sub-district within the neighborhood policy is designed to be looked at as a much larger overall development. Like if someone were to buy Courtney's house, buy this property, buy a couple of the other properties nearby, and kind of redevelop it as a block. So there is the potential that planning would not allow him to go that dense, just because it's only one tiny little lot in the group. So, you know, we've yet to see what the potentials are there. He's going to look at some options, and this person, just so you know, has not bought the land. He was just doing some very preliminary exploration with us, and I basically, like I did with Scott and Ron, and Bo wasn't in on that conversation, but just as I did with these next folks, I'd like to introduce Scott Morton and Bo Fowler. And did Ron ever join us?
No, Ron was questionable, so I think it'll just be me and the 2 developers, Bo Fowler and Jamie McNally, this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Jamie, I don't think has his, well, maybe he does have his camera turned on. Okay, there he is. All right, so these folks, just as a way of introduction, Scott Morton is with Smith G Studios, and Bo and Jamie are the developers that are looking to actually redevelop the particular lot in question. We're looking at a total of, is it 5 properties?
It is 5 properties. You're correct. It's roughly around 6.7 acres on Dickerson Pike.
Okay, so they came to me last week, and we talked for a little bit to kind of get the overall basics. I gave them a quick rundown of, and verified with them, neighborhood policy and what could be done in that particular area, and they wanted to come to us and talk to us as a group. So we did a little preparation for it. A couple of quick, now, Scott, are you going to go into the nitty gritties of all the current zonings and what we're looking to do?
Yeah. I do have a small presentation, if I may oblige to share my
Sure. Let me see if I can allow you to share your screen. Do you have a share screen button at the bottom? I think I turned it on where everybody.
See if it works.
Perfect. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to mute my mic and turn the floor over to you, Scott. Take it away.
Great. Oh, thank you so much, Stacy. Appreciate you guys allowing us time to speak today and accommodating us on your agenda. We greatly appreciate it. We're, again, I'm Scott Morton with Smith G Studio, a local urban design, architecture, and interiors firm here in town. We have a project on Dickerson Pike in your community that we are very early in the process, but we wanted to get before the community and begin to share our initial thoughts and get some feedback from you today. Like I said, we are just beginning the design process, and we understand how important the Highland Heights neighborhood is in regards to the policy that's in place here, the special policy and neighborhood overlay that exists. We spent a lot of time researching, we spent a lot of time researching the policy and making sure that our thoughts and ideas are consistent with the neighborhood policy. So I want to briefly just walk you through a few exhibits that come directly from the Highland Heights study that many of you I know were actively participant in that process several years ago. And so we have done a detailed analysis of the policy to make sure that we are consistent with those objectives that were created during that time 2 years ago in that community effort. So the screen I'm sharing here, there's a lot of colors, so I apologize. A lot of purples and different colors, but the site, I'll try to, I don't know if my cursor is visible or not, but the site we've highlighted in blue, which, as Stacy mentioned, is 5 separate parcels, roughly located at 1411 Dickerson Pike. And so this is just, our Dickerson frontage is just south of Gatewood Avenue, and we have 3 parcels that front directly on Gatewood, right across from the MDHA project Uptown Flats, which my firm was also designed in this community maybe 10 years ago. So I just wanted to orient you in general terms to the location that we're talking about. So it's roughly the intersection of Gatewood and Dickerson Pike. It's roughly 6.7 acres, and it's 5 parcels of land, 2 of which have direct frontage on Dickerson and 3 that have frontage on to Gatewood. So this is the policy document from the Highland Heights study that shows the existing community policy, which is T4 mixed use corridor for the 2 parcels that front Dickerson. And then it is T4 neighborhood center on the parcels that front onto Gatewood. So you can see that light purple shade there. It's hard to see under the blue, but I'll get into more detail in a moment. So, whoops.
If I could interrupt for a second, Scott. Yeah, the map that you're showing presently is the current policies. The map that you had previously was prior to the policy changes.
Okay.
That one was prior. That one was basically the areas that were recommended for updates and changes, just to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Sorry, this next map is actually the specific sub-districts that were created as part of the Highland Heights study. There were several different categories and many different colors you see here that created different sub-districts for properties that gave guidelines for the appropriate pattern of development and height and scale and mass for each of these respective areas. And so the site here is represented in the blue shade. It has a red lettering here that says site. We are actually located in 2 separate sub-districts within the Highland Heights plan, one of which is the M2, which is the dark purple, which is intended for high density commercial mixed use development along the Dickerson Pike corridor. And then R5, which is the dark orange color, which is intended for moderate density residential development as a transition into the Highland Heights community, into the central part of the neighborhood. Additionally, the Highland Heights study included many improvements and recommendations for infrastructure extensions and improvements, rather. And so you can see the site highlighted in blue. One of the 7 major infrastructure improvements identified actually transverses through our subject property that we're exploring. And it included the idea of connecting a local street from Marie Street up to Gatewood, connecting to the Luton Street corridor on the north side of Gatewood Avenue, right behind Uptown Flats. And so you can see it might be difficult to discern on your screen, but there's a dashed line with a number 7 right here in the middle. That gray dashed line is indicating a proposed north-south connector for a new local street. And this was envisioned to try to create and reconnect the street fabric within the community and the block structure on this very large super block within your neighborhood. Just real briefly, this is the sub-district map, and I wanted to just share that, again, we're talking about 2 different sub-districts. One is R5 and one is M2. So we're in a mixed policy or mixed sub-district across the property. R5 allows for a variety of residential options from from multifamily development down to single family homes. And the M2 is envisioned for higher density mixed use development and residential development as well along the Dickerson corridor, which is indicated here on this, this simple diagram and chart. Furthermore, this additional chart kind of goes through more specifics related to the R5, which is the bottom left of your screen, which talks about, in very general terms, the appropriate, intensity and perhaps appropriate zoning vehicles for this property. And so generally properties along Luton and Gatewood are anticipated to support growth and residential development along that Dickerson corridor at up to 40 units per acre. The M2 district, which is the higher intensity uses, provides a variety of different choices from mixed use zoning to higher density multifamily zoning. So one thing that I wanted to just bring this up and be clear is that we are exploring this property as part of an SP rezoning due to a lot of the policy initiatives for the improved infrastructure for the area and the appropriate contextual transition to the neighborhood. The SP or specific plan zoning is going to be the appropriate vehicle and recommended by the policy for this rezoning effort. So I wanted to briefly walk through the site. As you can see on this map, we include 2 different parcels that have frontage on Dickerson Pike, as well as 3 parcels that have frontage on Gatewood Avenue. And so several of the parcels are largely vacant. There is a existing tire shop business establishment on Dickerson Pike that is operating today. And also along Gatewood Avenue is an existing mobile home development and residential community, and the item B, as you can see on the screen. And there are 2 single family homes as well adjacent to that between the church that's next door. So the site, as it goes from Dickerson, the policy generally recommends higher density development on the Dickerson parcels that go back to the community from west to east, and then transitioning to moderate density as you get adjacent to the neighborhood on the northeast corner of the property. So our thoughts on this project, again, we're very early in the process, and we really value this input on a preliminary level from you individually, is to really get an understanding of what the community sentiment and desires are for this project as we begin to explore the different possibilities. But our initial thinking for your consideration includes, we expect to develop a moderate density development on the Dickerson corridor parcels up to 4 stories in height. The current policy would support pretty moderate density up to 6 stories is the current height limitations. We are actually looking to do a 4-story development, not not take advantage of the full policy height limitations. And so we're looking at a 4-story development for the Dickerson portion. And as we transition to the rear of the site and most approximate to the residential community of Highland Heights, we would transition down to a 3-story development, which is consistent with policy, and the R5 subdistrict recommends a 3-story transition on that back portion of the site. And so at a very preliminary level, that is our initial vision, is to provide for a development that has a nice urban frontage on Dickerson Pike, and that provides great housing choices with different unit mixes from studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom rental development properties that will provide different options for residents in the area and along the transit corridor of Dickerson Pike. And then the appropriate contextual transition to the community as we go further into the site to the rear. And furthermore, as you recall, the policy goal of obtaining a north-south street is something that we will be exploring to meet that policy objective to create a north-south vehicular connection through the property and meet the policy's goal of creating better vehicular connectivity throughout the entire neighborhood. We will be exploring that as a fundamental part of our design process. And so we haven't gotten very far in design or style. We think that there are a variety of options that could be appropriate at this location, from a more modern approach to a more timeless traditional approach. We haven't dialed into any specific architectural style at this point. As I said, it's very early, but we are greatly excited about hearing your feedback and thoughts on both the site in general, but also the appropriate style and what you think is most appropriate for this part of the community in Highland Heights. And in closing, before I open up for Q&A, I just want to say thank you, Stacy, for accommodating us, and the board members for allowing us to be on the agenda. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here early, and we will be coming back as we begin to develop further design framework for the site and more details in the future. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to your input, and I will open it up for general questions and commentary. So thank you.
Okay. If you could do me a favor, Scott, and just go back, I think it was just one slide where we had more of the aerial of the current terrain. Okay. All right. That way we get a concept of what we're talking about here. So a couple of things that from our conversation that I wanted to just make sure we clarified. When you and I and Ron talked, I believe it was last week or week before last, we had talked about your general idea for the type of housing. At that time, I believe the concept was more of an apartment complex.
Correct.
Is that still the leading thought, or are we looking at something different now?
No, that is correct. We are looking at a rental development for rent with different housing choices and bedroom mixes for the community.
Okay. And one of the stipulations that I said is probably going to be everyone's preference is, and pretty much a requirement, is that no STRs of any sort on this property at all. No short-term.
Thank you for bringing that up. I can't believe I forgot. No, this project is not planned for. I'm so sorry.
We all have children. It's cool.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
My wife is chasing them down. I'm sorry for that disruption, but you are correct. There are no plans for, our zoning will include a prohibition on short-term rental properties, owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied. So I know that is a very important component in this community. And so thank you for bringing that up.
One of the other things that we discussed was the unit count. And at the time that we had our discussion, we were looking at roughly 200 units. Has that changed?
It hasn't changed. We're definitely looking north of 200. I mean, up to 250 units for this site. You know, our goal, we're not trying to create a massive urban, like parking garage structure development here. What we are focused on is providing moderate density with surface parking lots. It could, you know, our target is up to 250 units, plus or minus. And so that will be accommodated with a 3- and 4-story development with open spaces intermixed and surface parking lots provided behind the buildings outside of public view.
And so just to kind of let everybody know the rough density, that would be equivalent to approximately RM40 density, which would give you roughly 40 units an acre on average. Because yeah, you're at 6.77 acres. So that's roughly 268 units would be your max. So
that's right.
Yeah, so about RM40. So that being said, I have a couple more questions for you, but since I've already had the luxury of speaking to you in advance, I'm going to open the floor to anybody else that has any questions before I dive into a couple more questions that I have. Does anyone have any questions of Jamie, Bo, or Scott? Courtney?
I just had a quick question. I mean, I'm still simmering on some of the questions you had regarding like character styles, but in a lot of this imagery, there's significant green spaces that do look shared. And I was wondering with that potential like thoroughfare going through and that large section, at least from the aerial image, that appears to be some mature tree canopy, I wondered how much you guys were considering like maintaining some of that green space or potentially making some of those mature canopy spaces like shared green space, or if that's like if that would likely be the site of the build back in that corner.
Sure. No, that's a great question. Thank you, Courtney. I mean, absolutely, you know, the existing tree canopy is an asset. We want to try to preserve as much as we can within the amenity spaces, both in the amenity spaces for the project with green space, but also we do plan to have amenities geared towards the residents, such as a clubhouse, standalone clubhouse and pool courtyard. And so landscaping will be very much a part of the design, the central design feature, both in the new street and the various open spaces that we hope to accommodate throughout the development. And so, like I said, I don't have any specificity yet because we haven't really dived in to this point, but our goal would be to take advantage of the existing assets of the site and to, you know, incorporate those into our amenity plan as we move forward with the design process.
Great, thank you so much. And I realize that a lot of the specifics are yet to be determined. And it is, I mean, there's a lot of different factors with it, fronting Gatewood and Dickerson. I wonder, was your vision for all apartments, or would there maybe be some different types of housing kind of in the area of that C? Because I believe there are a couple single family homes that would be across the street. So I just was curious if it would still be apartment-like in that section, or if you foresaw maybe there being a couple different types of housing.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We do anticipate the predominant part of the site being apartments. We will be transitioning in scale and massing as we go closer to that northeast corner. As you mentioned, there are single family properties across the street. And so our current plan is to, you know, transition the design of the buildings at that northeast corner to be more consistent with the residential character of the area. We could possibly include some townhomes that are broken down into more of a residential character at that edge, for example. that are lower in height and broken up. The facade and massing is more articulated to a residential single family scale and mass, versus the predominant goal of the site, though, is to accommodate a mixture of housing choices within a multifamily development. But we are contemplating, those different building products, as you mentioned, to help with that transition from Dickerson towards the interior central part of the community and neighborhood.
Thank you. Yeah, I personally like that a lot. I think each development, it becomes a part of the fabric of the community as a whole. And I think a lot of what East Nashville is proud of is its diversity. And so having those mixed housing types is just like a continuation of the fabric, or would be. And I think that would be really nice and really enriching for that continuation of our community.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that input. That's great.
If I may chime in on Courtney's point, just for full disclosure, I live very, very close to this property at the south end of Luton Street, and I'm curious about the displacement of what I think is maybe a dozen or 2 dozen rental properties that are in the range of affordable. And so I'm curious what thought has been put into making some of the units affordable in the full sense of the word, not just in the median income, but the below medium income sense.
Yeah, no, understood. I will defer to Bo or Jamie on the developer side. I think at this time it's so early that all the financing options aren't known, but the goal is to provide a variety of housing choices and price points with the different products. Will there be subsidized affordable housing? I think it's way too early to say at this time, but that's not my understanding. But Bo, I don't want to speak out of turn as a designer, and I want you to speak as the representative.
Sure. No, and that's a great question. So, to Scott's point, the financing, it's still kind of TBD. But affordable housing is something that's important to us. And in previous projects that we've done, it's always been a component of our, of the projects we've delivered. And ways we accomplish that are by providing, smaller units that, in the studio size range that allow, renters a more affordable option. And that's definitely something that will be included in what we'll have here. But there'll be a range of bedrooms and a range of price points that will hopefully appeal to, everybody in the community.
One of the things that we had discussed in our conversation of a couple of weeks ago was that this particular project is going to have on-site management. So, Bo, Jamie, this question is directed more at you guys. Are you developers with the intention of selling the apartment complex, or are you going to be the owners of the property after construction, hiring the management team?
It is our plan to develop and hang on to the property.
And to retain ownership. Okay. All right. So
correct.
Then that's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask that, because if you're going to have on-site management, I'm assuming it's not going to be you two, but it'll be somebody. But we are looking at and talking to the people who will retain ownership after the development. So that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments, concerns, anything like that we want to forward before I make a couple of comments based on our conversation from a few weeks ago?
I have a question. Kind of going off what Rachel said with like the people who are currently living at that property. I know you talked a little bit about having different room sizes and price points and things like that. I'm just wondering, just thinking about like affordable housing, is there anything that maybe like we as a neighborhood could do to just think about how those, to make sure that the property is affordable for the people who maybe have lived there, or or being displaced, or like that it's not just like a luxury apartment that maybe completely changes the character of the neighborhood, if that makes sense.
Sure, no, that makes perfect sense. And so, I mean, I will say the nature of a project like this, so it will take about 2 years from start to finish to complete the project. So it's a long construction process. And so, just due to that, like the people that are there, they will have to live somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now, again, with all of our developments, and this one in particular, like it will be a more affordable option. It will appeal to, I would say your average East Nashville renter.
Okay.
So, and I also like to think that by creating more housing, which is what we're doing, that, provides more options for, new residents and old residents alike.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone else have? Oh, look, our council member is in a waiting room. Let's bring him into the conversation. He may take a minute to join us. But does anyone else have any questions of the developer or the designers at this point?
I mean, I guess commenting aesthetically, just because you asked and it's the front end of a project, so you're dreaming. I tend to be drawn to I like the brownstone sort of style. I don't have any problem with the new modern stuff, but I always prefer seeing brick. I think a lot of the building materials I've seen in the last 5 years don't seem to be aging that well on some of the new developments. So I think sometimes combining obviously modern, advances with some of the tried and true is a nice way to blend back into the character and the history of the neighborhood. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll see a lot of continued growth on Dickerson, and we're seeing a lot more modern builds. So I don't think that's completely outside the scope of our growth, but I would like to see some nods to the existing neighborhood fabric. And I think some of that is how people utilize these spaces. And when you see porches and green space incorporated, that really builds the fabric and the enjoyment of a community and for the people living in these spaces or who will be living in these spaces. So if we can find a middle ground, I think that would be my preference.
Awesome. Very well said. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So thank you, Courtney. Appreciate that.
Okay. So going back to our conversation of a couple of weeks ago, I had some other points that I brought up with Scott and Ron when we were doing our preliminary exploratory type session. One of the things that was a concern to me, and it would be a concern I would think to the business owners, with the within the SP, this particular project can have some retail and or commercial that would front Dickerson. And if that is something that is being explored as potential build out in those particular buildings fronting that, I would like to make sure that I express to both you and you Bo and Jamie, that please make sure that there is no competing business with Uptown Market. That's an established business that's been in our neighborhood for several years. They've got a really nice grocery store, and we even talked about finding some ways to help support them by either doing some building some sort of entryway into the backside of their property so it would be easy for residents to walk over. But that market is an established business that is a good contributor to our neighborhood, and we certainly don't want to see anything that would bring unnecessary competition to them. That would be right basically next door to them. So kind of keep that in mind, that there would be a restriction on any kind of grocery type of business that close to those neighbors. One of the things that, in fact, this picture reminded me of it, is there any plan for a small dog park or dog run for the use of the residents, because one of the things that we hear from time to time when large dense projects like this come into a neighborhood is everybody else's yard all of a sudden becomes pooping grounds. And while we love to walk our dogs, sometimes neighbors don't take real kindly to a poop fest that is not maintained or controlled or picked up. So I'm trying to come up with all sorts of funny names for the density of deposits, so to speak. But that would be something that would be, I think, a good use, especially with signs and notices that it's for residents of that project only. Likewise, I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate us walking our dogs into their dog park and leaving behind treats. So that's something that I would consider.
That's a really good point, Stacey. I think that, we haven't really gotten to that point of whether or not dogs will be a part of the development. But again, Bo, if you have any other thoughts, but if they are, I mean, a dog park and a dog run are absolutely critical. If you're going to provide for an apartment development that has dogs, that's the number one amenity that you can.
Exactly. And I just want to throw that out there so that we're not picking up later on.
No, that's great. Yeah, good feedback.
Then one of the other things and I learned this earlier today, and this kind of brings up a concern that I just became aware of. Apparently MDHA has some restrictions on developments like this that would restrict any type of ingress or egress from Dickerson Pike, which means that the only way that, if that is true, the only way that residents could get into and out of the complex is on Gatewood. Considering we're talking 250 units, I'm a little concerned that if they don't allow you guys to build any type of exit or entry to and from Dickerson, how are we going to mitigate extra traffic through our neighborhood, and then especially onto Gatewood, since Luton ends right into this particular project, and that section of Gatewood is kind of small?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think at this point we're very open to different access and connectivity options. We'd love the opportunity to connect to Dickerson. There is language in the Dickerson Skyline Redevelopment District that encourages you to use alternate methods of connections. What we will be doing and will be required for this type of project of this scale is a traffic study that will be done and will be reviewed and negotiated and approved with Metro departments to ensure that the intended impact of traffic is mitigated, and there will likely be offsite improvements as part of that study and recommendation, but it's way too early and speculative to know what those would be until we have a consultant on board that would begin to analyze that. But you're absolutely right. I think from strictly a fire access project of this size, we're required to have 2 points of egress for fire and emergency access. And so we are aware and ready for the conversations with Metro to discuss the different options available to us. And obviously the traffic study will also give us further guidance on the most appropriate plan for access and traffic patterns and improvements that will help to serve the community and benefit everyone with offsite improvements.
Okay, I just want to make sure that if that should be, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt somebody, but if that is the case, I want to make sure that we look at how we control the amount of traffic that comes out through our neighborhood, because turning left onto Dickerson directly out of the project is a scary proposition sometimes, even at Gatewood, turning left. So, if we do have to have some sort of extra traffic controls in place, I think the making sure that we put an appropriate control mechanism, either a light at Gatewood or something of that nature, to help control the traffic so that we minimize any risk of increased accidents due to the increased traffic. So someone was going to have a question, and I didn't mean to step on you. I didn't see you.
That's okay.
Rachel?
Stacey.
Okay,
I was
good.
just going to add to what you were saying, in that as I deal with that very issue quite regularly, There is an elementary school across the street, and so during high levels of traffic time for schools, there's even more issues. So as you're thinking about that, I just want you to take the school's needs into consideration as well, because that's a really important part of our neighborhood, is that elementary school there.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually kind of a weird time. When we're doing traffic counts, when we do a traffic study, during COVID, traffic counts are historically low. Obviously, not as many people are driving in schools. So most of the traffic engineers that I've been working with are having to use historic data from last year to get a better understanding of the true traffic generation during school peak times. And so that's a great point with Schwab right across the street. And understanding, how that works with their traffic management plan is going to be vital to this process. So thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any other last minute questions or concerns? I think I've got pretty much everything that was on my notes covered from our conversation beforehand. If not, then I thank you, gentlemen, for your time. And we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Yeah, and absolutely. I want to just say thank you to everybody on the call. I know it's very early and it's hard to respond when you don't have any, physical plans or designs in front of you, but it's important to us of a project of this scale that we got in front of you early and really, as we dive into this, understand your concerns and perspectives and, what's important to the neighborhood. I mean, that is what I think is going to help us generate the best plan that will benefit everybody. And so I really thank you for obliging us, and we look forward to sharing more detail with you as we get into the design process and we're able to utilize this information and come up with some preliminary designs for you to take a look at. So sorry if I was long-winded, but I appreciate all the feedback we got, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future on our progression. So thank you.
Our gratitude is mutual because honestly, as I'm sure you can recall, there was a time in the not too distant past where developers didn't come to us until after everything was already said and done. And having developers willing to come and speak to us and hear our feedback and hear our concerns and take some of our suggestions to heart makes it a more beneficial proposal in the long run. So just thank you for coming to us at this stage and involving us, and we appreciate the willingness to continue coming back to us and giving us updates. And as a neighborhood organization, we will give you any opportunity we can to speak to us in general.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and it's greatly appreciated. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
You gentlemen are more than welcome to stay on the call if you want. If you need to go, I completely understand. We are running a little long. I do apologize to everybody. I did try to keep these to an hour.
I've got to step out and deal with that, but thank you.
I do as well.
Yeah. Go
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. So not much left on the agenda for tonight, but right quick, since Mr. Parker was able to join us, Sean, welcome. Do you have anything that you want to bring to our attention? I did tell folks about the good news about the non-owner occupied short-term rentals being taxed at commercial. Yeah, there was a. Yeah. Truly, honestly, that is quite good news, I think. So anyway, anything else?
Well, yeah, that's something that we've been asking about since before I was a council member, and since I've been a council member, I've been asking about. And I was just super pleased to see that happen. It's my understanding that we can mostly thank so there's a Tennessee State Assessors Association. So that would be like Vivian would be a member of that group, are the ones who really advocated for that and got it done. So I'm super pleased that was able to happen, and it just makes sense. It's what's fair and it's what makes sense. So I'm glad for that. I spent a lot of time over the last few weeks working on a bill to expand outdoor dining in Nashville. I think it's going to be a really good thing. I'm not a public health expert. my gut says that it's probably best for folks to not be dining out at all right now, but I don't think that genie's going back in the bottle. So by expanding outdoor seating, I think that that's going to help our hospitality workers. It's going to help our small businesses. It's going to help our restaurants weather this economic storm through this pandemic a little bit better. And for my, personally, I would feel a lot more comfortable eating outside right now than I would eating inside, but I'm still not quite back going to restaurants yet, personally. I know some people are, a lot of my friends are, and that's fine. We've all got our different comfort levels with the current situation, and that's totally fine. So outside of that, I mean, a lot of people in Metro are just, it has been a crazy news day, with the report that blew up, characterizing the administration as having misled folks about COVID numbers. And it's just, it just feels like one thing after another this year. I just had no, on March 2nd, I had no idea the rest of the year would be what it has been. And
Hey, at least we don't have a tiger running loose in our town, so
Alleged tiger.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to miscategorize a leopard. I didn't mean it. Go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry. Just trying to introduce some levity into your. I'm
just making the point that this year has been super duper challenging. I mean, I know that everybody's dealing with. I've had a pretty big hit to my income this year, largely as a result of COVID. We're all kind of dealing with things, and this community has been super resilient and strong throughout all of this, and I'm just real happy to be a part of it.
Cool. So since Sean was able to join us, does anybody have any quick questions for him or comments or anything that you'd like to pass on that's council related?
Sean, I don't know if you saw in the chat, but Anna, Courtney, and I are forming a tiny gang of people who are concerned about the previous project and the displaced families and affordable housing units that might not be considered in that project. And so I just want to alert you to the forthcoming emails about that particular project and potentially other ones. And if anyone else wants to join our tiny gang, you're totally welcome, and we appreciate your input.
So that's awesome. I mean, it's one thing when I can tell a developer that I care about something, but when the people in the community are legitimately with me and are really elevating those concerns, it makes it so much easier for us to actually have them heard and have something done about it. And so I encourage, yes, please do that.
And I'm assuming Rachel, you're speaking of the project that we just got off the phone with, or is that the one that you're speaking about?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, cool.
What's on site now is it's a mobile home park. Am I correct?
There's a couple of businesses on Dickerson with a lot of unused land behind them, those two long parcels. And then there is a trailer park and a couple of single family homes. The trailer park is small. I don't think it had more than maybe 20 units.
Yeah.
Hang on, I have an aerial view. Let me count them right quick.
Grady just did the census in that park, and he thinks it's about
17.
7. Yeah.
I wonder, what is because in some of those parks, the folks own the unit and then they pay the rental fee, the lot fee. And then in some of them, somebody owns all of them and they just rent them. So what happens if you own a unit and then somebody sells your lot?
Got to move the unit. You don't own the ground underneath. You just own the portable housing unit. So if you own it, it's got wheels. Hopefully they're still in good shape. Yeah, hook it up and drag it off. That's the way it is with every trailer park. And anytime somebody buys a trailer park, that's always the possibility of the land is transferred. And it's like with condos and HOA, you don't own the dirt under your feet, you just own the physical structure. Unlike a condo, you can move it and relocate it if you find another parcel to put it on. Condos, you can't do that. So,
well, I wonder, if those folks are aware of this proposal. There was a for sale sign up there, wasn't there, at the property? So I mean, people probably
I
have
don't know. Rachel, you drive by there more often than I do.
Yeah, I walk by there every day. I've never seen anything. We know that the one in front of it next to Uptown Flats, all those are, we know those are for sale, but we haven't heard anything about this particular one. That's why we were kind of taken off guard.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes the property owner will put something up for sale, and the people that are in that position, and I think that's what happened with 1801 Meridian. A lot of those folks didn't have any clue until it was too late, which is one of the reasons why in the Metro think tank, when we were looking at planning specifics, that we try to work in a way to advise residents and renters that are actually on properties when something comes up that's being developed near them. Because if notices just go to property owners, renters may never know, and all of a sudden now you've got something huge being built behind you and you were completely unaware.
Well, here's the thing about that. I mean, I know we're trying to wrap up and y'all run along, and thank you for letting me jump in here at the end. The developers pay for the notices, right? So that's something that we might be able to change at the council level that wouldn't have a dime of fiscal note for the city.
And I'm not sure if that was something that Lucy and the planning staff were working on, because bear in mind, this all went into play less than a year ago. And there have been some things that they've initiated and started doing. Some of the things they may not have yet that may be on their radar. I don't know. I've not gotten any update from them, mainly since, COVID and everything since March just kind of cut down on the times that we get together and meet. But it is something that I can always pose a question to and see how they went with it.
One thing that I've learned about, when there's kind of a nation effort, like there were people in Metro working on the outdoor dining stuff, right? And so once I started working on my bill, I filed it. And then all of a sudden, all these people from Metro start calling me and saying, hey, we want to work with you and get this done. And then it went on my timeline and it got done. So sometimes these things will kind of hang out and nothing will happen. And then if I go in there and file a bill, all of a sudden Lucy calls me and says, hey, let's make sure this works, right? And then
I think one of the similar points, and then I don't mean to derail the conversation too far, but we also looked at the radius from a particular property and sending out notices. I can't remember what it was beforehand, 1,000 feet maybe, expanding that radius, because especially in agricultural districts, you might not have a home within a couple of 1,000 feet, but yet you're looking at building a development that's going to impact more than just one homeowner in that area. But there are several points to that white paper that they were looking at implementing, and I know that was one of the ones that was going to be easier. I just don't know what stage they are in doing that.
Well, I have the ability to start a little fire there and get them moving on it. Would you want to talk offline sometime about I would like to read and review. I haven't read the white paper in months, so I would like to read and review that. And then if you'd like to have a conversation with me and maybe some of the other folks who worked on that white paper, I'll be happy to get something drafted. And again, it might be one of those things where it's it's just not it's not something they're actively working on, but if they see that I file a bill, they're going to come to me and say, hey, we've got some amendments because we want to make sure it works for us. And then we can move forward a little quicker than it would if we just waited for them, you know?
We can certainly do that. I have no problem talking with you, Sean. Talk with you anytime I need. So that being said, does anybody have any other questions or comments for Sean in his role as our council member?
I have one quick question. You mentioned that if the developer comes to you, you can voice your things, but it's helpful if you can say, and the neighbors care about this. So what do you need from us to know that? I guess what's helpful if we care about the affordability and the accessibility and the trees and things in this neighborhood, what's helpful for you?
Anytime somebody wants to do something within Highland Heights, I send them here. Okay. And being in these meetings and voicing those concerns if I miss one of y'all's meetings, I watch the video. So I'll hear it. You can email me. It's here. Let me put my email and
I would point you to our website where the council members' email addresses are, but unfortunately the website is corrupted or something. I got to go in and figure out what happened to it. There must have been an update that didn't take or something. But I will say this while Sean is doing that. When it comes to developments, one of the most key people as far as whether or not a development is going to move forward or not is the council member. A council member holds a lot of keys. Now, someone can bring a development to council and they can, they have every right to push it into council and push it. But historically, if the council member is against it, most of the council will vote against it and it won't happen. Same thing with commission. If the council member is not there pushing it, the planning commission may very well vote to disapprove it and they could still take it to council, but it's a much harder road to hoe. Likewise, if the council member doesn't really care and just will greenlight pretty much anything, which is kind of what we've seen in the past, it's hard for residents to stand up and say, hey, we don't like this. Now, I will say, Anna, there are a handful of people in this neighborhood. Courtney was one, Ashanti was another. There are a couple of people that have moved out of our neighborhood that were also very vocal. And a couple of years ago, you've heard us talk about the study. You saw part of the study. That was a huge historical moment for us because we literally got our policies rewritten, not to everybody's satisfaction, but it really helped preserve a lot. And it spoke a lot to the commission as well as this council member that, you know, you really want to pay attention to residents within a particular neighborhood and especially residents within your district. So that being said, Sean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, years ago, maybe 8 years ago, you could make an argument that, oh, we just need to see any investment in this community is good investment. And anybody who wants to build something should be accommodated. If that ever was the correct approach, I don't think it is anymore. People want to build over here. People want to build housing over here. They want to start businesses over here. We don't have to bend over backwards to get new housing built. And so as a community, we really are in a position to have some say in how things happen because we're not in a position where it's like, oh my gosh, we just have to get people to invest in this community. This is a super desirable part of the city. And we do have a lot of leverage as a community in that process. So coming to these meetings, you know, just, I think that Stacy does a really good job of letting y'all know where things are at the planning process, when they get to council. But I mean, as a rule of thumb, anybody calls me about a Highland Heights thing and I tell them to come here first step. So these meetings are just really, if you miss it, maybe catch the video and you'll be well in the loop for Highland Heights stuff.
And I will say that when Sean does point them in our direction, I do insist that we have a conversation before they're allowed to come before the group in a meeting. In fact, I had one developer basically telling me that I didn't have a right to do that. And I said, look, sorry, it's my meeting. I've been put in charge of making sure these meetings go and flow. And if you can't have a conversation with me to express what you're thinking about doing, then I can't put a spot on the agenda for you. So I've tried to be very protective of that. And I hope everybody understands and appreciates the hard line that I draw in the sand sometimes. So that being said, right quick, that's really the only thing the only other thing on the agenda tonight was basically a quick roundtable to make sure nobody had anything completely unrelated to anything else that we've discussed. By the way, hey JM, good to see you. Civic-minded young man there. So he comes to our meetings sometimes and just listens in the back. So anyway, did anybody have anything we can kind of run around the room, or if somebody wants to raise their hand and say, hey, I got something I want to talk about right quick? Ben, you turned on your video, so I
I
assume
did.
that
You
means
know
you
I'm
want to
doing
say
something.
something.
Yeah. No, I just had a quick question because I did want to make a dues payment and I couldn't remember and just hadn't messaged where I was supposed to send that. Is that something?
I can take it from you, and we can get together. You can mail it to the PO box.
Yeah, is that PO box listed somewhere? I just
On the
might have
currently defunct website. Hang on here. I'm looking to see if we've got the.
I'll blame Courtney for that one. She's
No, it's entirely my fault. It's not Courtney's fault this time.
Okay. Cool.
Just-
Thanks.
I haven't paid either. I think you said you were looking at restructuring the dues or something last time.
Yeah, and that's just me being going in so many different directions that I just haven't had a chance to do that yet. Hang on here. I'm looking for the receipt that'll tell me the PO box. What the? Well, too much freaking paperwork.
In this momentary pause.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to the affordable housing and concerns about diversity in housing, I know that a lot of members of our community this has been a passion project and part of on their radar for a long time. I wonder, I sit in meeting after meeting with developer, and the response to the question, even when it's more pointed about the definition of affordability, is responded to with studio apartment. I get really concerned that that's even an answer anymore, because it just seems like, all right, we all know the question that's being asked here, and that's, to me, not a solution. That's, you're saying like, oh, okay, full families living in homes, like, yeah, we'll give them a 1-bedroom. It'll be the same price point. And I just don't think that's a very straightforward, it's a straightforward answer, because to me, all I heard was no affordable housing. And so that's just market-based pricing. And so I'm just wondering, does anybody have any insight into, how do you respond to that tactfully and productively? What are some of the things that have worked? And I know that's a whole separate conversation, but is there any top line that's maybe give me some insight into are we seeing developments in the city that are standing their ground and that have found a successful strategy of integrating market-based units with truly affordable housing that preserves the affordability in our city?
Well, wasn't River North going to have some sort of affordable component to it? And I know the water tower project on the other side of the water towers between it and Ellington, there's a section of land that's supposedly being developed with that concept in mind.
Well, the way
but we don't know how that's going.
Yeah, the way they did that one was the developer, I forget his name, he calls me all the time, of the water tower project. He just deeded part of the land to Eddie Latimer and said, do something affordable over here. So,
yeah. And nothing's really happened on it any time of late. So
it might be tiny homes that, I don't know what that's
something like
be.
that. Yeah. Andy Beard is the gentleman you're thinking of.
Sorry, there's no regulation in Nashville for affordable housing. I moved from Boston in 2019, and of course they had passed that all new developments had to have a certain percentage, and I can't remember off the top of my head, of affordable housing, real affordable housing, like you said, Courtney. But it didn't, they were making deals that it didn't necessarily have to be on the site of what they were building. They could actually pay for something else similar to what you were talking about. But
So
no.
That's inclusionary zoning is what we call that. Nashville tried to pass a form of inclusionary zoning in 2017, I think it was, and the state quickly preempted us there. The issue, exactly what you're saying with some of those inclusionary housing things, is that they result in poor door housing. So they'll build a big thing with 300 units, and then down in the basement, they put 20 affordable units. And they say, oh, we built affordable housing, but they have no windows, and they're 300 square foot 1-bedrooms. So the stuff that the stuff that the most successful stuff that I've seen recently in Nashville, and I have my reservations about this project for other reasons, but the Oakwood Flats, right across from where I live up here, it's a ton of like 3-bedroom affordable, like even without a Section 8 voucher, I think a 3-bedroom is like $1,100 there.
Yeah, and 2 bedrooms were like 900.
Yeah,
but that was a special arrangement though with MDHA, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was like
because those are supposed to at some point convert to ownership units.
Really?
I thought there was an ownership
work, and I just can't find the information
component.
how the actual affordability was structured there, because it was all like backroom MDHA stuff that's not super publicly available. Courtney, the answer is
that developer also used HUD financing. I actually helped design a little bit of that site.
Cool.
And they use some HUD financing. And I think the rule with the HUD financing is they have to remain affordable for a certain number of years, and then they can be converted into
that's what it was.
Rate rentals, basically.
That's what we ran into after 2008, early in the 2000s, for all of you ancient people like me, that they built a ton of stuff like that in 2006, 2007, and then the 2008 financial crisis hit, and they weren't able to actually even honor those agreements because everything went into bankruptcy and the ownership transferred. And when that happened, they no longer had to honor their affordable housing arrangements. And so that's another concern we have to be aware of at the economic potential of the future when we think about these short-term affordable housing agreements.
And this is one of those things that one would hope that developers kind of look at the picture of what's coming down the pike and realize that if they're going to build something, not everything has to have stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, and luxury bathrooms. If they're going to build units that are solid and well-constructed units, the affordable housing aspect of it doesn't mean you have to build it for Section 8. You just don't build it with ultra modern conveniences that everybody sees on HGTV is when they're doing Flip These House. That kind of goes back to it. Sean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rag on.
I just wanted to circle back to the core of what Courtney was asking, and the answer is the definition the easiest definition is a person is cost burdened in housing if they're spending over a third of their income on housing. Some people will use the 25% figure. Some people will say a third, and that person is cost burdened. So we want more units where more people are not cost burdened, and whether those are ownership units, where those are rental units. What I think we really, really need, because I don't think home ownership is the right answer for a lot of people at various stages in their life. I think we need a ton more stuff like Oakwood Flats, where you've got 3-bedroom units that are affordable within the urban core, close to jobs, close to retail, close to stuff where people want to do. To me, that's ultimately what we need. And the financing that people have to roll to get these projects together is super duper complicated. As I don't know your name, but as you're muted.
I'm Rob.
Rob. Okay, cool. Thank you. Good to meet you. I'm Sean. As Rob was saying, yeah, the financing can have just like multiple layers, and there'll be like a city element of it where the city does a tax break, and then the state does something, and then HUD does something. And I'm trying to get a better grasp of it. Some of these folks that are proposing these projects, I'm asking them if they're willing to really kind of crack open their books and let me run through it with them, just so I can get a better understanding of how these projects work. But there's no like concerted approach that I can just like endorse and say this works. Some projects end up working great, like Oakwood Flats. Some projects, like during the Purcell era, they built all this stuff like in the Gulch that was like affordable, right? But it was like a 5-year affordability period, and then it just reverted to home ownership, and you could sell it at market. So like all these people that bought those units bought them at affordable rates, and then just resold them 5 years later for twice what they paid. Great for those people, but it doesn't really do anything for the overall affordable housing stock in the city when units flip over to market that quickly. 5 years is a very short window.
And one of the things that as a neighborhood we want to keep an eye on is that we have had a number of transient residents. So if we have options that people can buy, or not buy, but get into, for especially if they're multi-year leases, if they have no intention of staying anywhere for more than 3 or 4 years, that would be a better option than necessarily buying a house at a high price and then them trying to turn around and sell it at a high price, and it just keeps mushrooming in price value until some point somebody's going to get stuck holding the bag. So that's always been a concern of mine, because it doesn't really help build the neighborhood when average of residency is less than 3 years in some instances. You buy a house and then you're moving on in just a handful of years. So it might be a good thing to have affordable housing. It might be a good thing to have some that are kind of in between affordable and high rent. Who knows? But a mix is definitely better than everything at $400,000 price tag or $2,500 a month in rent.
Yeah, just a last note though about the micro units. I'm assuming like Scott Morton is just all about those things. I'm assuming that's what he was saying when you asked him about affordability. So that we're going to have some 400 square foot units in there, and those will be $200,000, or they'll rent for $900 a month or whatever. You look at how much those units cost per square foot, they're like $600 a square foot. Like you look at the ones at 1041 Trinity that are for sale. It is a unit of affordable housing for an individual, but you get a dog.
How big are those $163,000 units?
Well, and Sean, to your point, like we asked them about the families that were being displaced, because I know that almost all of those residences are families or multi-person renters, and they were like, I can move into a studio. So it's like kind of not answering the question. And I think that's why we want to continue to raise that.
Yeah, not those families that go to Schwab. And I mean, you look at Schwab and they're well below capacity, So every time that we displace, 3-bedroom units, be they, older homes or mobile homes or whatever, that's fewer students and fewer dollars for the school there. Because if, we have a ton of like people, single younger people like me in the district, and that's fantastic. But like, you need students in your schools too, otherwise they don't get any funding.
Well, that kind of goes back to why transient residency is not ideal for a neighborhood, because if you buy a place or you look at a place, you're only going to live here 2 or 3 years, or maybe all of a sudden you've started a family, and within 3 or 4 years you've now got 2 kids, possibly a third on the way. You got to look somewhere else to live. I'd rather keep people that are investing in our neighborhood. I'd rather keep them here. Yeah. In all honesty, but it makes it a challenge when they bought something that they could afford, and now all of a sudden they're looking to expand, and now they have nowhere to go. And they have to look outside the county. We see that all the time, which is a whole nother conversation. So,
I mean, but also, Stacey, this is Ashanti. Some of that is not just like they can't afford it. I mean, I know a lot of people who buy in this area or who are young or single, they get married, and as soon as they have kids, they want to move to Franklin or Rutherford County because they don't think the schools in Davidson County are good. So some of it too, I mean, I've met so many young couples who decide we're going to live here for 5 years and then we're moving to Franklin.
Yeah. And that's it's again part of the same big picture. And how do we slow that trend down, and how do we manage that and make it different? How do we turn that ship so that it's multi-level, and it's a much bigger conversation than what this meeting can have. But at the same time, we all acknowledge it. Maybe we should get together, like Rachel mentioned, and have a beer and talk it over. Solve all the problems of the world. So anyway.
I'm happy to reach out to East Nashville Beer Works on our behalf and let you guys know when they're willing to accommodate us.
Absolutely. Yeah, hey, you know what? If you want to put that event together, we can make it happen. Certainly. In fact, I need to go in and renew my Mug Club membership. But anyway, that's another topic too. So did anybody have anything else that they wanted to bring up? I'm just we've only got 11 people on the call right now. So just want to make sure run through. Ms. Linda, did you have something?
Just, I posted the post office box in the chat.
Oh yeah, thank you. There you go, Ben. If you've been sitting on the line waiting for it,
Thanks so
it's
much.
down there. I knew I was looking for something a minute ago.
Yep.
Been a long day.
I'm sorry, what's the amount?
It's $15 for no wait, no, $10 for individual, $15 for family. But again, we are looking at doing something different. I just need to get off my my keister and get something else in place. So anyway, alrighty. Anybody else have anything? If not, we're going to call this meeting a success. Hopefully, everyone got something good out of it. I will say this for those that have not been with us very long, like Paula and Anna, there's a wealth of information on Metro's websites. If you do a Google search for Highland Heights study, you should be able to find the PDF that Scott was referring to. There were several of us in the group, Courtney, Ashanti, myself, Martha to a degree, that were involved in that, and we can certainly answer any questions that you may have on that document. It can be a little daunting to read. Also, if you have any questions about any type of developments or anything of that nature, please let me know, because I am pretty involved in that from a layman perspective.
We've read the document and think it looks great.
Oh, good.
Good work.
There's also a white paper out there that the Metro Planning Think Tank published about a year or so ago. I can send you guys the link for that if you'd like. I'd have to find it though. I've got it somewhere around here. But it was something that, as an entire county-wide type project, representatives from neighborhoods from all over the county came together to refine some of these ideas about what's wrong with the planning process, what's broken, what's right, what can we do to fix it, recommendations. And we published this white paper that kind of addressed all of that. So I can get that to you guys if you like. Just shoot me an email or a Facebook message or something. If nobody has anything else, then I think we're going to wrap this one up. I sincerely apologize that we went 2 hours, but we had a lot of good conversation, and we wanted to make sure that we gave everybody opportunity to weigh in. Anything else? If not, Madam Secretary, it is now 8 p.m. We are going to consider this meeting adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
And we are out of here. Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Ciao for now.